The anime begins with a famous saying. It is said that when a being is treated with care, a spirit will come to inhabit it. Then, one bright morning, we see people in the streets going about their daily lives, and a red light is focused on a trash bin. In a certain city, we see two ladies in white clothes throwing garbage bags into the designated spot for trash disposal. After that, we see a torn dog doll and a girl talking to her mother about how her doll is ruined. Her mother expresses regret as they just bought it, and fixing it might make it worse. She suggests they buy a new one instead, and we see them put it in a garbage bag and toss it into the trash outlet that leads through pipes to garbage trucks. Then we see a lady leaving, while a strange person wearing a mask and hood is watching her. The garbage trucks move, and a person in dirty clothes follows them. Soon after, we see a man in white clothes, like a security guard, hearing whispers inside a room. He approaches the door to find someone rummaging through the trash. He is surprised, forcefully opens the door, and points a weapon at this person. We learn that this area is forbidden for anyone not allowed to enter, and the security guard tells us that this person is a thief who steals from the trash and threatens the beauty of their city. An alarm sounds, and other soldiers arrive, but the thief throws garbage bags at them and escapes through the trash outlet. He tries to get out, but the gate closes. Suddenly, the soldiers shoot at him, but he is very fast and manages to dodge the bullets and escape. The soldiers continue shooting at the fleeing thief, but one bullet hits him as he jumps over a wall, and he manages to hide and finally escape from them. We see this thief coming out of a sewer, revealing his face as a boy who says they are a bunch of fools that don't threaten anyone. In his bag, there are the torn dog dolls. Then we see that everyone in the city is wearing the same white clothing and listening to someone playing music. Afterward, we see a person writing in a notebook while listening to two ladies discussing an incident involving garbage the night before, wondering about the person who escapes with the trash, thinking he might be from the tribes. They look at this person and assume from his clothes that he is of a lower status than them. The man looks at them and walks away, and we understand that those from the tribes are seen as lower in status and cleanliness than those living in the city. The two ladies wish that those living in the tribes would keep to their side. We then see the man exit through an iron gate, revealing that there is a high wall separating the tribe side from the city side. We see that the tribe side is an old and dirty city. Two people talk about the thief who stole from the city's garbage, wishing he would stop so the soldiers wouldn't come to them. Meanwhile, we see the boy thief surrounded by the stolen items he took from the city's trash, and we hear a girl tell him Radu and ask if he went again to collect garbage. We learn her name is Kyo, and she continues saying that people in the city are demanding regarding garbage management, and it's unpredictable what they might do if they catch Rodu. She asks him why he insists on collecting trash. Rodu explains that the rich in the city throw away usable things without a second thought, and stealing helps him earn money to cover his living expenses. Kyo asks Rodu if he enjoys collecting trash. He clarifies that it's not like that, but at that moment, we see three people bullying Rodu, saying he smells awful. They notice Kyo, and one of them tells her that her smell will become bad if she continues standing with Rodu. He points at Rodu, saying he wears that dirty glove all the time, and believes he will get a rash if he touches him. Another kicks a lamp that was in front of Rodu, telling him that no one would buy the trash he fixes. They continue saying that under those gloves is terrifying, and we hear Kyo say that Rodu is no different than them. One of the people says that going out with him is a bad idea because he is the son of a killer. Rodu is astonished by this comment. This person continues, saying that these neighborhoods were built to confine criminals, and they think they are descendants of such people trying to maintain cleanliness to improve their image. Here, they accuse Rodu's father of destroying everything due to the killings he committed, telling Kyo that if she goes out with him, people will presume she is bad like him. Rodu looks on in anger, frightening the three people, and one of them mentions his criminal eyes and suggests he will become a killer like his father before they leave. Rodu asks Kyo why he would become like that. Kyo tells him that it's horrible to say and that he is not like his father, insisting he is a good person who cannot kill anyone. Rodu gazes at her, feeling tense, and suddenly Kyo screams in delight upon seeing that Rodu has fixed the dog doll. However, Rodu clarifies that this doll is not for sale. At that moment, Kyo's mother calls for her, asking her what she is doing and telling her to come home with her. Kyo goes with her mother and tells Rodu that she will see him again. We hear her mother saying she requested Kyo not to see Rodu again. Rodu watches them leave, and then we see him walking on his way home, where we find the person who was in the city standing inside, repeating Radu's words about the doll not being for sale. Rodu gets angry, saying, "Regto, you were watching me." Regto explains that he must be clear about his feelings and continues that he wants to talk to Rodu about his actions regarding the city's garbage. Then we hear Regto telling Rodu that their situation is not hard enough to risk his life and that he should let Regto handle things until Rodu grows up. Rodu looks at him, stating he's not in danger since they have never found him. Regto responds that they indeed found him last night, emphasizing that Rodu and he are not blood related but are like family, and Rodu should not act as if he owes him something. Rodu clarifies that Regto found him as a child and raised him, stating he doesn't owe him anything but treats him with respect. Regto looks at him, wishing to be honest with Kyo. Rodu feels tense and knocks over a lamp, looking at Regto with anger and asking why they are talking about Kyo. Regto notices the wound on Rodu and asks when he got it, wanting to know if someone shot him. Rodu panics, saying no. Regto approaches him, wanting to see the wound so he can change the bandage on his hands, asking him to take off his glove. We see Rodu remove his glove as we hear Regto tell him that he must stop stealing trash, or he will end up with serious injuries next time. We see that he bandaged his wounds. Rodu stands up, explaining that these wounds are not as serious as those left by his father. He looks at his hand, covered in scars, as Regto looks down, saying that the penalty for major crimes is instant death, which means a fall into the pit, and this has been the city's rule since ancient times. He adds that Rodu's father was thrown into that pit, which is why Rodu must take care of himself, even in this filthy world. Rodu recounts that his hand was black like this, as he remembers, and sometimes he feels intense pain from them. He recalls the looks of people who were disturbed by seeing his injury, which drained his spirit when he was little. He clarifies that Regto is the one who gave him these gloves that eased his pain, and he is indebted to Regto. Meanwhile, Regto holds the dog doll, advising Rodu to tell Kyo about his feelings, or someone will take her away from him. He adds that he should give her this doll tomorrow. Rodu gets flustered and angry, and we hear them arguing. At this moment, we see the masked person standing outside, listening to their quarrel. The next day, Regto advises Rodu to smile and tighten his face to make it look happy, but Rodu replies that there is no way to succeed with his face. He glances at the doll, thinking Kyo would be at her home, and walks on the road. He notices garbage bags, looks at them, and continues his way. He clarifies that the pit is basically a massive dump where all the trash ends up, and anyone who commits a crime is thrown in there. We see the waste being tossed into the pit, hearing voices from people gathered chanting, "Send the filth to the pit." We see someone thrown into the pit, and Rodu clarifies that his father was thrown into the pit. He wonders what happens to the people who are thrown in there. Meanwhile, we hear someone say they are sending another person to the pit. Rodu responds with a yes, and he realizes that the one speaking is Chio. Rodu stutters when he sees her, and hides the doll behind his back. Chio is happy to see Rodu because he doesn't come here often. Rodu can't respond. Chio continues that it's a terrible sight. Rodu agrees and says it's not much different from any place in the slums. Chio says that the slums were built on the edge of the city, so that they could instill the idea that anything bad you do will lead to you being thrown into the pit, and that anyone who lives here must witness the executions, whether they like it or not. She looked at Rodu and wished that she wouldn't see him meet his end in the pit. She added that she knows there's a lot of trash that doesn't deserve to be thrown away, and that if Rodu put himself in danger for that and was caught, his fate would be to be thrown into the pit. Rodu says that Rigetto said this. Chio replies, "Because he loves you too." Rodu is surprised by Chio's words, and he says, "Loves me too?" Chio notices and gets embarrassed and says, "I didn't mean that." Rodu looks at her in surprise. He holds the doll, puts it to his face, and falls to the ground. Chio looks at the doll and says, "Is this the doll?" Rodu interrupts her and says that he thought she would like it when he saw it. He pauses and explains that she might not like it because it came from the dump. He extends his hand for Chio to take the doll. Chio took the doll from him and was happy. Rodu looked on in surprise. Then we see Rodu running and jumping joyfully in the streets. He said he must tell Rigetto what happened. As he runs, he collides with city police officers and falls to the ground. They look at him and continue on their way. Rodu wonders what they are doing here. Rodu continues his run to Rigetto. He hesitates before entering the house, but he opens the door and enters. He hoped to see Rigetto, but he was shocked when he saw the masked person in front of him on the ground, Rigetto killed with a sword. Without hesitation, Rodu attacks the masked person. Suddenly, we see Rodu fallen on the ground, injured, and unable to get up. We see the masked person pick up a book from the ground and look at Rodu as he exits the door. Meanwhile, Rodu hears a whisper from Rigetto. Rodu goes to him and hears Rigetto tell him in a low voice, "Run." Rodu asks him why and who did this to him. He reassures him that he will go get help, but Rigetto screams at him and tells him to run, and to change this filthy world, and Rigetto dies. Meanwhile, the police arrive and arrest Rodu. They accuse him of committing murder. Rodu is surprised, and he tells them, "What do you mean? I didn't do anything." The police force him to be silent and say that he was caught red-handed killing Rigetto, and that he is covered in his blood. Rodu explains to them that the real killer escaped. They ask him to be silent, but Rodu repeats that the real killer escaped. So one of the police officers hit him. After that, we see people gathered in front of the house, and we hear one person say, "Finally, Rodu killed. He killed his adopted father." And we see the dog doll, and we hear Chio's voice saying that she can't believe Rodu did that. Then we see people gathered at the pit, and we hear the judge say that our beautiful land has been polluted because of your actions, not just stealing trash, but by committing the most filthy crime, which is murder, and we see Rodo hanging by ropes at the pit. The person continues and says, even if the victim is just a filthy person from the tribes, the perpetrator of the crime must not remain on the land for a single moment. And he announces the death sentence for Rodo, and the people shout and repeat, throw the filth into the pit. Here Rodo appears hanging, wondering what is happening and how it could happen, and we see him approaching the pit. Rodo continues that he didn't do anything. He looks at all the standing people and begs them to listen to him, and among the people, he sees Chio standing and holding the doll in her hands. At that moment, Rodo shouts at her and says that Rigetto was killed, and that the killer must be found. Chio whispers and says, I believed in you. You are truly the son of a killer, and she throws the doll on the ground and leaves. At this moment, the people continue to repeat the phrase, send the filth to the pit. At this moment, Rodo smiles and says, you are the filth, piles of filth with no will of your own. And Rodo sees the judge raise his hand and notices the real masked killer among the standing people. Suddenly, Rodo is thrown into the pit, and he vows as he falls that he will send them hell. After a while, Rodo opens his eyes, and we notice that he has fallen among the trash, and that he is still alive, and he doesn't know where he is or what this place is, and we see that this place is full of trash and waste. Rodo looks on in surprise and says, they used to say it was a landfill, and we see a monster appear in front of him. Rodo continues that the pit is the end of everything, people and trash, and Rodo looks at the monster in fear, and he says, it really is hell. We see Rudo looking small, holding someone's hand, as they both look at a dangling person's foot. Rudo explains that it always seems strange because everyone is busy with criminals and filth, and never wonders what happens to them when they are thrown into the pit. He imagines people talking about throwing someone else into the pit, then hears a girl's voice asking why they commit crimes, knowing their fate is to be thrown into the pit. He remembers the judge's hand, and anger shows in Rudo's eyes. Rudo runs fast from a giant monster that appears from the garbage and shouts. Then several more giant monsters come out of the trash. Rudo runs, but suddenly one of the giant monsters stands in front of him. Rudo freezes, scared, wondering what these things are. They're just piles of garbage. How can they? Before he finishes his question, one monster attacks, trying to eat him, but Rudo quickly moves away. He runs but trips and falls on a human skull. He gets angry and asks how they could throw him into this hell. An earthquake happens, and suddenly the monsters stop moving. We see Rudo lying injured on the ground, feeling the air here is awful. If he keeps breathing it in, his lungs will tear. He tries to get up, thinking he needs to find a safer place. He looks around in shock and wonders if there is even a safe place in this weird area. Suddenly, he vomits blood and looks at the three monsters starting to move toward him. Rudo wonders if he's going to die here. He thinks of Reguto at that moment, seeing him lying on the ground with blood coming out. Rudo says here, no. He looks ahead, picks up a stick from the ground, and starts to stand. He says there's something he must do for the people who despised him, called him a criminal, and threw him in this pit. But first, the killer who killed Regutohei vows to find that person. Suddenly, a monster attacks him. Rudo hits it hard with the stick, saying he must live long enough to get revenge. Next, we see a box thrown at a man holding an umbrella. He looks through magnifying glasses, wondering, is this the one? Meanwhile, Rudo struggles with the giant monster, hitting it. He says this place and these monsters smell rotten. Rudo attacks the monster, jumps on it, and hits it, but the monster hits him back, pushing him away. Rudo crashes into a high rock, then another monster lifts that rock. Rudo grabs a traffic sign and throws it at the monster. Suddenly, another monster appears under Rudo's foot. He jumps up but starts coughing blood, feeling weak. The monsters get closer. A red glow appears on Rudo's hand. He feels power. The monsters attack, but Rudo strikes them. He pierces one monster's body with a piece of metal sheet, tearing it in half. The monster explodes. We see the remains of the monsters behind Rudo, who falls to the ground, saying the smell is rotten. Suddenly, a bigger monster than the others appears behind him, standing on its hind legs. Rudo looks at it and starts running. Suddenly, the monster slams the ground hard, causing an explosion around it. The blast throws Rudo into the air, and he falls down a slope. Rudo, lying on the ground, opens his eyes and is surprised to see the man holding the umbrella standing in front of him, wearing a mask. Rudo wonders who he is. The man picks him up, then kicks him away. Rudo is in pain, but the man carries him, fitting a mask over his face. Rudo feels he can breathe now. He asks if the man is a local and what this place is, and what these monsters are. The man tells him to be quiet, but Rudo insists on knowing what this world is. The man tells him again to stay quiet. Rudo explains he just fell into this world and wants to understand the pit, this underground place. The man says they are not underground, and that he must keep quiet. Rudo yells for the man to speak clearly, but the man snaps back angrily, shouting that this isn't underground, and that the garbage was thrown by the people from the Ark. He orders Rudo to be silent because those monsters behind them found him because of his noise. Rudo is shocked. The man continues, calling these the garbage monsters, made from trash, and they can't be killed by ordinary weapons. They're attracted to the sounds people make. The man orders Rudo to stay quiet, saying he was hiding from the monsters. Suddenly, a monster approaches from behind the man. The man says it's all Rudo's fault for not listening. Suddenly, fire bursts out of the umbrella, turning it completely into flames. Then the umbrella opens, revealing sharp blades inside. The man directs it at the monster behind him. Suddenly, the umbrella spins and explodes the monster. Rudo notices the monster doesn't regenerate. He wonders what kind of umbrella this is. At that moment, the monsters line up and start attacking, but the man charges and defeats them all with a single strike of his umbrella. Rudo asks if this is a technique used here in the pit or something special this man has. The man swings his umbrella down to the ground. Rudo thinks if he had this umbrella, he could teach those bastards a lesson. Suddenly, a monster shoots a bubble at the man, who blocks it with his umbrella, causing a small explosion. During that, the man attacks the monster's head with the umbrella and blows it up. Then the man stands, and the umbrella turns back into a normal one. The man looks at Rudo and tells him he's still alive. Rudo asks who he is. The man removes his mask and says his name is Engin, a simple garbage cleaner. Suddenly, Engin feels suffocated by the awful smell, quickly puts his mask back on, and yells at Rudo, asking why he made him take off his mask. Rudo looks surprised and falls to the ground. Earlier, we see young Rudo with dirty clothes. Reguto asks what happened to him. Rudo says they pushed him. Reguto says those bullies again. Rudo explains he told them those things were alive, so they mocked and beat him. Reguto asks if he fought back. Rudo shakes his head no. Reguto says good. Rudo tells Reguto he once said that if you take care of something, a spirit will eventually live in it. Reguto replies that Rudo misunderstood and thought those things were alive. Rudo stays quiet. Reguto adds, it's just an old legend, probably just to encourage a certain mindset about caring for the things in your life. He says he doesn't believe in it, but thinks that towel has a spirit, that's why Rudo cleaned it carefully. Rudo looks at him and points at other things around. Reguto laughs and says maybe. Rudo looks at his glove and says this one too. Reguto says if you take good care of them over time, a spirit will dwell inside. Rudo is amazed. Right now, Rodu wakes up to find himself chained. We hear Ingin's voice say, "You're awake." Rodu scolds him. Ingin replies, "Is that how you treat someone who saved your life?" Ingin walks, pulling Rodu along. Rodu angrily asks him, "Why these chains? What are you going to do with me?" Ingin answers that Rodu fainted, and he decided to take him along. Rodu tells him to untie him because he wants to go back up. Ingin stops and explains that's impossible. He says the place above is called the Ark, and asks how Rodu thinks he can go up, because the Ark is constantly moving, and there are other factors, so it's impossible. He pulls Rodu, and continues that Rodu must accept this and stay calm. But Ingin stops when he hears Rodu say that it's impossible, and he'll return no matter what, and that Ingin knows something he doesn't want to tell him. Rodu insists he must know how to reach the Ark. He adds that he wants to understand this world, the monsters, and even the power Ingin possesses. He asks Ingin to tell him everything, because he'll use all of it against the villains in the Ark. He remembers the masked killer. Rodu continues that he won't be silent until Ingin tells him everything. Suddenly, Ingin throws his mask away and says Rodu won't stop talking, so he'll tell him about this world. We hear Rodu's voice telling him to stop. We see Ingin forcefully dragging him while walking. He suddenly drops him on the ground. Rodu looks around and sees transport trucks next to a gas station. He asks, "What is this place?" Ingin tells him to enjoy himself. Rodu turns to Ingin and asks him to wait, saying he hasn't answered anything. Ingin leaves him alone. But suddenly, Rodu hears a sound behind him. He turns to find masked people looking at him. One of them wonders, "He's a kid. What's he doing here?" They assume someone is with him. It's impossible for him to come here alone. He looks at Rodu's clothes and is surprised, saying, "Could it be?" He approaches Rodu and asks if he's from the Ark. Rodu looks at him. The man continues, "Where did you come from?" Rodu replies that he actually came from the Ark. Suddenly, the people remove their masks and throw them up. They gather around Rodu, eagerly asking, "Are you really from the Ark?" because they've never seen someone from there alive before. They're amazed. Rodu asks them, "Who are you?" One of them is surprised that Rodu speaks their language. They don't believe he's lying. One person tries to unmask him, but Rodu pulls away. They can't believe he survived. Another person explains that they only find their corpses. He asks Rodu why he's tied up like this. The man tries to untie him. Rodu sees that they are kinder than Ingin. But suddenly, we see he's tightly bound by his hand inside a cage. We hear Rodu trying to free himself. We understand that they don't want a valuable person from the Ark to escape. One of them explains that the bodies of people from the Ark are very valuable. A complete body, but also the eyes, arms, and legs. And someone will even pay for their clothes. But despite that, they didn't expect to get one of them alive. Rodu looks at them in anger. One of them replies, "You want to know why someone desires the Ark's inhabitants? Because we hate you." He continues, "You dump your trash here, and it piled up, polluting the air, even creating monsters. The monsters killed many people here, and people were crushed by the garbage. They lost their homes because of the poisoned soil." He asks Rodu, "What do you expect them to do when they see you? They'll torture you. They'll tear you apart in front of everyone. After we sell you, we'll stand and pay to watch them do it." We see them throw dirty food in front of him and force feed him because he's thin and they don't want him to starve to death. The man smiles and says he bets Rodu's taste is sensitive to the dirty food here. He adds that the Ark's inhabitants are arrogant and never touch garbage. He force feeds him. Another man, who smiles, confirms, "Food waste. Certainly." The man opens Rodu's mouth forcefully and feeds him, but Rodu bites the man's fingers so hard that he tears the skin off. The man falls, screaming in pain. We see bone exposed from his fingers. We see Rodu chewing the man's fingers in his mouth. Everyone is astonished when they see Rodu tilt his head to the ground and eat the dirty food. We hear Rodu say that the food isn't garbage but certainly edible. He looks at them while eating, and they look at him in astonishment. Rodu explains that everyone he meets talks about the Ark and the Earth, garbage and tribes, here above and there below. He gets angry, and we see a red light appear from his hand and cover his body. Rodu continues that they should stop classifying people based on their own classifications. Suddenly, Rodu breaks free from his restraints. He jumps in front of them. He says, "You think you have the right to treat me however you please. This won't be accepted anymore." The red light appears around him. Meanwhile, Injin was watching him with his magnifying glasses from a distance. We hear him smile and say, "Amazing energy." He adds that he discovered it in him from the beginning. At this moment, Rodu takes off his mask and remembers Rigto's saying that if you treat something with care, a spirit will inhabit it one day, and the spirit will come to its aid. We see energy coming out of his glove. He grabs the chains, and the energy shines more intensely. The people look at him and say it's impossible for someone from the Ark to possess such energy. Meanwhile, Ingen observes and explains that those who can give life to objects and extract their power are givers. At this moment, the man whose hand Rodu bit screams at the rest of the people that this child must pay the price. He gets angry and orders them to kill him. The people attack Rodu. Rodu lifts the chain and throws it at them. One person says they must target the chains. He adds that givers are helpless without their objects. A person appears in front of Rodu and hits the chain away. Rodu grabs a car wheel and imbues it with power. Injin is surprised as he watches the event. Rodu turns the wheel into a weapon. Injin and the man are surprised that Rodu can use more than one object. Rodu hits the man in the face and knocks him to the ground. We notice that he has knocked everyone to the ground. He approaches the last person whose fingers he bit. This man screams at him and wishes him death. Rodu extends his hand to hit the person, and at that moment, Ingen appears from behind him and grabs Rodu's hand, telling him to calm down. Rodu indeed calms down. We see objects falling around, and a rock falls on the man's head, knocking him unconscious. Rodu looks at him and asks Ingen, "Right?" Ingen replies, "Yes." Suddenly, the wheel in Rodu's hand turns to ash, and he wonders what this is. Rodu explains that he suddenly remembered Rigto's words and bleeds from his nose, looking at his glove. Ingen explains that using such power exhausts the body. He apologizes because he wanted to make sure Rodu's power was real, and he will tell Rodu everything he wants to know about this world, and also about his power. But in return, he extends his hand to Rodu and asks him to join the cleaners because they want someone like him. Rodu looks at him in surprise and says, "Me, I'd rather not."